Maya Chen stared at her phone screen, reading the email from her daughter's school for the third time. Her hands were shaking slightly, though she'd never admitted to anyone in the office. The subject line was simple enough, but it felt like a punch to the gut every single time she saw it. Parent conference required. Urgent. Please confirm attendance. This was the fourth email this month. Fourth, and it wasn't even the end of October yet. Her assistant knocked on the glass door of her corner office, poking her head in with that apologetic look Maya had come to dread. The investors were waiting in the conference room. The presentation was ready. Everything was perfectly organized, just like Maya had trained her team to be. But Maya couldn't stop staring at that email. "Give me 5 minutes," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Tell them I'm on an important call." The door closed softly, and Maya let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. She looked out the window at the city below. 43 floors up, everything looked so small and manageable. If only her life felt that way. Her daughter Lily was 8 years old. 8. And Maya couldn't remember the last time they'd had a real conversation. Not the rushed morning exchanges about brushing teeth and finding homework. Not the tired bedtime routines where Maya barely kept her eyes open. A real conversation where her daughter actually looked at her, actually talked to her about something that mattered. Instead, there was silence. Cold, heavy silence that filled their beautiful apartment like fog. And when Lily did speak, it usually ended in tears or slammed doors or both. This latest incident at school was worse than the others. According to the email, Lily had locked herself in the art supply room during lunch and refused to come out for over 2 hours. The teacher had tried talking to her through the door. The school counselor had tried. Even Lily's best friend had tried. Nothing worked. Eventually, they had to call the janitor to unlock the door from the outside. When they finally got in, Lily was sitting in the corner, surrounded by paint bottles and brushes, completely silent. She wouldn't say why she did it. Wouldn't explain what was wrong. Just stared at the wall like no one else existed. Maya felt that familiar tightness in her chest, the one that showed up every time she thought about how badly she was failing at the one job that should have come naturally. She was a CEO, for crying out loud. She managed over 200 employees. She'd grown her tech startup from nothing to a company worth millions. She could walk into a room full of hostile investors and convince them to hand over their money. But she couldn't get her own daughter to talk to her. Her mother's voice echoed in her head from their last phone call. "Maybe you should take her to see someone, Maya. A therapist or a counselor." This isn't normal behavior for a child. Maya had bristled at that suggestion. It felt like admitting defeat. Like standing up in front of the world and announcing that she was a terrible mother who couldn't even understand her own kid. The thought made her sick. She'd tried everything she could think of. She'd bought Lily new toys, new clothes, signed her up for art classes and swimming lessons. She'd arranged play dates with other children from school, though those usually ended with Lily sitting alone in a corner while the other kids played. She'd even taken 3 days off work last month, something that nearly gave her CFO a heart attack, to spend quality time with Lily. Those 3 days had been torture. Every attempt at conversation fell flat. Every activity Maya suggested was met with a shrug or a quiet, "I don't care." By the end of it, Maya had actually felt relieved to go back to work. At least at the office, she knew what she was doing. At least here, people listened when she spoke. But that relief came with crushing guilt that kept her up at night. Maya glanced at the clock. The investors were waiting. She had to pull herself together. She typed a quick response to the school, confirming she'd be at the parent-teacher conference that evening at 6. Then she stood up, smoothed down her designer suit, and walked into the conference room wearing the confident smile she'd perfected over years of business meetings. The presentation went perfectly. It always did. Maya knew how to control a room, how to make people believe in her vision. By the time she wrapped up, 2 of the investors were already talking about increasing their funding. Her team looked at her with admiration and respect. If only her daughter looked at her that way. If only once. The afternoon dragged on with back-to-back meetings. Maya's mind kept wandering to that evening's conference. What would the teacher say this time? How much worse could it get? She'd been to 3 of these conferences already this semester, and each one had been more painful than the last. At 5:30, Maya finally left the office. Her driver navigated through rush hour traffic while she checked emails on her phone. trying to distract herself from the anxiety building in her chest. By the time they pulled up to Lily's school, Maya's stomach was in knots. The elementary school looked cheerful and welcoming with its colorful murals and playground equipment. Children's artwork decorated the windows. It was the kind of place that should have made Maya feel warm and hopeful. Instead, it just reminded her of all her failures. She walked into the main building and headed toward the third-grade classroom. The hallway was crowded with other parents, most of them looking relaxed and chatting with each other. Maya recognized a few faces from previous school events, but she'd never bothered to learn their names. She didn't have time for school politics and parent committees. As she approached the classroom, she noticed a man leaning against the wall outside, checking his phone. He looked completely out of place among the other polished parents. His jeans had paint stains on them and his t-shirt looked like it had seen better days. His hair was a bit messy, like he'd been running his hands through it all day. Maya didn't pay much attention to him. She was too focused on mentally preparing herself for whatever bad news was waiting inside that classroom. The teacher, Mrs. Patterson, greeted Maya with a tight smile. The kind of smile that said, "We need to have a serious talk." They sat down at a table that was way too small for adults, surrounded by colorful alphabet posters and children's drawings. "Thank you for coming, Ms. Chen," Mrs. Patterson began. "I know you're very busy." There it was. The polite accusation hidden in politeness. Maya felt defensive immediately but kept her expression neutral. "I'm always available for my daughter," Maya said, even though they both knew it wasn't entirely true. Mrs. Patterson folded her hands on the table. "I'm concerned about Lily. This incident in the art room is part of a larger pattern. She's withdrawn from her classmates. She doesn't participate in group activities, and when she does interact with other children, it often ends in conflict." Maya's throat felt tight. Has something happened? Is someone bullying her? "Not that we've observed," Mrs. Patterson said carefully. "But Lily seems to be struggling with something. She won't talk to me about it. She won't talk to the counselor. I was hoping you might have some insight into what's going on at home." What's going on at home? The question felt like an accusation. Maya wanted to defend herself, to explain that she was doing her best, that being a single mother and running a company wasn't easy, but the words stuck in her throat. "I don't know," Maya admitted quietly, and it cost her everything to say those 3 words. "She won't talk to me either." Mrs. Patterson's expression softened slightly. "There was one positive moment today," she said. "After we got Lily out of the art room, she was very upset. None of us could calm her down. But then another student, a boy named Dylan, came over and just sat next to her. He didn't say anything, just sat there. And gradually Lily calmed down. Eventually she even smiled at something he said." Maya felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief that someone had reached her daughter. Jealousy that it wasn't her. Confusion about how a random 8-year-old boy had accomplished what she couldn't. "Dylan Morrison is in our class," Mrs. Patterson continued. "His father is actually here tonight too. Maybe it would help if Lily had more positive interactions with peers who seemed to understand her." Maya nodded, not really knowing what else to do. The conference wrapped up with Mrs. Patterson gently suggesting again that Maya consider getting Lily professional help. Maya said she'd think about it, which they both knew meant no. As Maya left the classroom, she felt emotionally exhausted. She just wanted to go home, pour herself a glass of wine, and forget this entire day. But as she walked down the hallway, she heard someone call out behind her. "Excuse me, Ms. Chen?" Maya turned to see the paint-stained man from the hallway jogging toward her. Up close, she could see sawdust in his hair and tiredness in his eyes. But there was also kindness there, something genuine that caught her off guard. "I'm Jake Morrison," he said, slightly out of breath. "Dylan's dad. Mrs. Patterson mentioned that our kids, well, that Dylan helped Lily today. I just wanted to introduce myself." Maya looked at him, this carpenter or construction worker or whatever he was, standing in front of her with dirt under his fingernails and paint on his clothes. She looked at his open, friendly expression and felt something crack inside her chest. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Maya Chen, successful CEO and struggling mother, felt the tiniest flicker of hope. Maya stood there in the school hallway, staring at Jake Morrison's extended hand. For a moment, she forgot how to do something as simple as shake hands. Her brain, which could process complex business strategies in seconds, suddenly felt like it was moving through mud. "Right, yes," Maya finally managed, shaking his hand briefly. "Dylan. He helped Lily today. Jake nodded, shoving his hands into his pockets after the handshake. He looked almost as uncomfortable as she felt. Mrs. Patterson told me what happened with the art room. Dylan mentioned it too. He said Lily seemed really sad. Maya felt that familiar defensiveness rising up. She didn't need this stranger feeling sorry for her or her daughter. But when she looked at Jake's face, she didn't see pity, just understanding, like he actually got it. It's been a difficult time, Maya said carefully, using her professional voice, the one that kept people at arm's length. Yeah? Jake said simply. I bet. They stood there in awkward silence while other parents filed past them, heading to their own conferences or leaving with their well-adjusted children. Maya wanted to leave, to get back to her car and her phone and her controlled world. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the desperation. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was because this man's son had managed to do what she couldn't. Whatever it was, Maya heard herself asking a question she never thought she'd ask a stranger. How do you do it? Jake looked confused. Do what? Get through to kids. Your son obviously knows how to connect with other children. How did you teach him that? Jake let out a surprised laugh, but it wasn't mean. It was almost sad. You think I have this figured out? Man, I'm just trying to keep my head above water most days. Maya felt something shift. Maybe she wasn't the only one struggling. My wife died 3 years ago, Jake continued, his voice quieter now. Dylan was only 5. For a long time, I had no idea what I was doing. Still don't most days, but I learned a few things the hard way. I'm sorry, Maya said, and she meant it. About your wife. Jake nodded, acknowledging the condolence but not dwelling on it. Look, I don't know your situation, but if Dylan helped Lily today, maybe they could hang out sometime. Kids need other kids, you know? Especially ones who understand what it's like to have things be hard. Maya's first instinct was to say no, to make up some excuse about busy schedules and prior commitments. But then she thought about Lily's face when Mrs. Patterson had described her smiling at Dylan. When was the last time Maya had seen her daughter genuinely smile? Okay, Maya said before she could overthink it. Maybe this weekend? A play date or something? Jake pulled out his phone, which had a cracked screen and a faded case. Yeah, sure. Here, let me give you my number. We could take them to the park on Saturday if the weather's nice. Nothing fancy. Just let them run around and be kids. They exchanged numbers, and Maya found herself agreeing to meet at the public park near the school at 10 in the morning on Saturday. As she walked to her car, she wondered what she'd just committed to. Maya Chen didn't do park playdates with strangers. She had nannies and organized activities for that sort of thing, but then again, nothing she'd been doing was working. When Maya got home that night, Lily was already in bed. The nanny, Mrs. Rodriguez, was packing up her things in the kitchen. How was she tonight? Maya asked, setting down her briefcase. Mrs. Rodriguez gave her a sympathetic look. Quiet. She did her homework, ate dinner, took a bath. But quiet. After Mrs. Rodriguez left, Maya walked softly to Lily's bedroom. Her daughter was curled up under her purple comforter, her dark hair spread across the pillow. She looked peaceful when she slept. Innocent. Like all the walls she built during the day just melted away. Maya sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to wake her. I'm going to figure this out, she whispered. I promise, baby. I'm going to figure out how to reach you. Lily didn't stir. Maya sat there for a few more minutes before retreating to her own room, and the pile of work emails waiting for her attention. Saturday morning arrived faster than Maya expected. She'd spent Friday having second thoughts about the whole playdate idea. She'd almost texted Jake to cancel 3 different times, but each time she'd thought about that email from school. Urgent. And she'd put her phone down. Lily had been suspicious when Maya told her about the plan. Why? Lily had asked, looking up from her breakfast cereal with those big questioning eyes. Because Dylan's dad and I thought it would be nice. You two can play together. I don't need playdates, Lily had said, going back to her cereal. I'm fine by myself. Those words had hurt more than Maya wanted to admit. 8-year-olds shouldn't prefer being alone. They should want friends, want connection, want to play and laugh and be silly. But Lily seemed to have given up on all of that. Now they were at the park and Maya felt completely out of place. She was wearing designer athletic wear that had never actually been used for athletics, and she was carrying a bag that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. She felt ridiculous. Jake and Dylan were already there over by the playground. Jake was in faded jeans and a plain t-shirt, looking completely comfortable. Dylan was running around the equipment, his energy infectious. When he saw them approaching, his face lit up. "Lily, you came." Dylan ran over, all smiles and enthusiasm. "Come on, I'll show you the best slide." For a second, Maya thought Lily would refuse, would shut down the way she always did. But something miraculous happened. Lily looked at Dylan and the tiniest smile crossed her face. Then she followed him toward the playground. Maya stood there frozen, watching her daughter actually interact with another kid, actually participating in something. "Coffee?" Jake held out a disposable cup. "I stopped at the cafe on the corner." "Black, right? You seem like a black coffee person." Maya took it, surprised. "How did you know?" Jake shrugged. "Just a guess. I'm usually wrong about these things, though. I have sugar packets if you need them." "No, black is perfect," Maya said, taking a sip. It was actually good coffee. Not the expensive stuff from her office, but good in a simple, honest way. They sat down on a bench where they could watch the kids. Dylan was showing Lily how to climb across the monkey bars, offering encouragement when she hesitated. Lily was trying, really trying, in a way Maya hadn't seen her try anything in months. "So," Jake said after a moment. "CEO, huh? That's impressive." Maya glanced at him, wondering if he was being sarcastic, but his expression was genuine. "How did you know that?" Dylan mentioned it. One of the other kids at school said something about Lily's mom being important. "Kids repeat everything." Maya felt uncomfortable. "It's just a job." "Come on," Jake said gently. "It's not just a job. Running a company? That's huge. You should own that." "It doesn't feel huge when your kid won't talk to you," Maya said, then immediately regretted being so honest. She didn't do vulnerability, especially not with people she barely knew. But Jake didn't look uncomfortable with her honesty. He just nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get that." When Rachel died, Dylan stopped talking for almost 2 months. Completely silent. Therapists, doctors, everyone said to give him time. But it was terrifying. "What changed?" Maya asked, genuinely curious. "Honestly, I stopped trying to fix it. I was so focused on making him feel better, making him talk, making everything okay again. But that just put more pressure on him. One day I just sat down next to him while he was playing with his trucks and I didn't say anything. Didn't ask questions. Didn't try to force anything. Just sat there. After about 20 minutes, he started telling me about the truck he was holding. Then he talked about his day. Then he talked about missing his mom." Jake paused, watching Dylan on the playground. "Kids don't need us to fix everything. Sometimes they just need us to be there, to not make them feel weird for feeling bad." Maya absorbed this information, turning it over in her mind. Her whole life was about fixing things, solving problems, taking action. The idea of just sitting and doing nothing felt completely foreign. "I don't know if I can do that," Maya admitted. "Just sitting. Just being. That's not really my skill set." Jake smiled. "Yeah, I got that impression. But hey, you're here on a Saturday morning at a park. That's something." They watched the kids for a while in comfortable silence. Lily was laughing. Actually laughing at something Dylan said. The sound was so unusual that Maya's heart squeezed. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said. "And I don't want this to sound offensive." "Go for it," Jake said. "Why are you being so nice to me?" "To Lily, you don't know us. You have your own life and your own kid to worry about." Jake thought about this for a moment. When Rachel died, people were either way too helpful or completely disappeared. The ones who disappeared, I get it. Death makes people uncomfortable. But the ones who stayed, who helped without making me feel like a charity case, they saved me. Maybe I'm just paying it forward." He looked at Maya directly. "Plus, Dylan really likes Lily. He came home from school yesterday talking about how she's interesting and thinks about stuff. High praise from an 8-year-old boy." Maya felt tears threatening, which was absolutely unacceptable. She blinked them back aggressively. She used to be so happy. When she was little, before my ex-husband left, she was this joyful, curious kid who talked nonstop. Now it's like living with a ghost. How long ago did he leave? 6 years. Lily barely remembers him. He sends money every month like clockwork, but The Saturday playdates became a regular thing. What started as one morning at the park turned into 2, then 3, then Maya stopped counting. For the first time in years, she actually looked forward to weekends instead of dreading the unstructured time with her daughter. Jake had this way of making everything feel easy. He never showed up with elaborate plans or expensive activities. Sometimes they just went to the park. Other times they grabbed ice cream or walked around the neighborhood. Once he brought supplies for all of them to paint rocks. which sounded ridiculous to Maya until she found herself completely absorbed in creating tiny designs on smooth stones. Lily was changing. Slowly, like watching a flower bloom in time-lapse. She started talking more at home. Not a lot, but enough that Maya noticed. She'd mention things about school without being asked. She'd show Maya drawings she'd made, small things that felt enormous. Maya was changing too, though she didn't fully realize it at first. She started leaving work at 6 instead of 8. Her assistant nearly fell over the first time Maya declined a dinner meeting, because she needed to be home for Lily. Her CFO actually sent her a concerned email asking if everything was okay with the company. Everything was fine with the company, better than fine, but for once, Maya was starting to realize the company wasn't the only thing that mattered. One Saturday afternoon, about 6 weeks after that first play date, Jake suggested they go to his workshop. He did custom carpentry work, building furniture and cabinets for people. His workshop was in a converted garage behind his small house, and it smelled like sawdust and wood stain in the best way. "This is where the magic happens," Jake said, gesturing around the space. Tools hung neatly on the walls. Half-finished projects sat on workbenches. Everything was organized but lived in. Real Dylan immediately ran to a corner where Jake had set up a kid-sized workbench. "Dad lets me build stuff," he explained to Lily. "Want to try?" Lily looked uncertain, glancing at Maya. Maya wanted to say, "Be careful," or "Maybe that's not a good idea," or any of the protective responses that usually came automatically. But she caught Jake's eye, and he gave her a subtle shake of his head. "Sure," Maya said instead, swallowing her anxiety. "That sounds fun." Jake set both kids up with small pieces of wood, kid-safe tools, and simple projects. Then he turned to Maya with a mischievous grin. "Your turn." "Oh no," Maya said, backing up slightly. "I don't do manual labor." "I'll just watch." "Come on," Jake challenged. "When's the last time you made something with your hands? And I don't mean typing emails." Maya wanted to refuse, but something about the way he was looking at her, like he was daring her to step out of her comfort zone, made her reconsider. "Fine, but I'm warning you, I'm terrible at this stuff." "Everyone's terrible at first," Jake said, leading her to his main workbench. "That's the point. You can't fail at making something if you're just learning." He set her up with a simple project, a small wooden box. Just 6 pieces that needed to be measured, cut, and assembled. Jake showed her how to use the tools, his hands guiding hers as he demonstrated the proper technique. Maya tried to focus on the task, but she was hyper-aware of how close he was standing, how patient he was being, how his hands were rough with calluses but gentle with her inexperience. "Like this," Jake said, adjusting her grip on the saw. "Let the tool do the work." "You're trying too hard." "I always try too hard," Maya muttered, then realized she'd said it out loud. Jake laughed. "Yeah, I've noticed. But wood doesn't respond to force the same way a boardroom does. You have to work with it, not against it." Maya made her first cut. It wasn't straight. It wasn't perfect. But she'd done it herself, and there was something satisfying about that. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, the sound of sawing and sanding mixing with the kids' chatter from across the workshop. "How'd you get into this?" Maya asked, gesturing around the workshop. "The carpentry thing?" Jake shrugged, running sandpaper over a piece of wood he was smoothing. "Started out of necessity, actually. Rachel and I bought this fixer-upper house right after we got married. Couldn't afford to hire people for everything. So I learned by watching videos and making a lot of mistakes. Turned out I was good at it. Or at least I enjoyed it enough to get good." "Do you miss her?" Maya asked, then immediately felt intrusive. "Sorry, that's too personal." "No, it's okay," Jake said, his hands continuing their steady work. "Yeah, I miss her every day, but it's different now. Less sharp, more like a constant ache. Dylan keeps me going. He looks just like her, you know. Sometimes he'll make a face or say something, and it's like she's right there in the room with us." Maya didn't know what to say to that. Her divorce had been painful, but it was different from losing someone to death. Her ex had chosen to leave. Rachel hadn't chosen to leave Jake and Dylan. "Your ex," Jake said, as if reading her thoughts. "Do you miss him?" "No," Maya said quickly, then reconsidered. "Maybe I miss the idea of him. The partnership we were supposed to have. But the actual person? No. He was never really present, even when he was physically there. Always working, always distracted. Then he met someone at his office, and that was that. His loss," Jake said simply. Maya looked up at him, surprised by the genuine way he said it. Not like he was just being polite, but like he actually meant it. I wasn't easy to be married to, Maya admitted. I worked all the time, too. I was building the company. I thought we were both focused on our careers, that it was okay. But apparently he wanted someone who would be more available. Someone softer. Softer, Jake repeated like the word tasted bad. What does that even mean? I don't know. More nurturing? More maternal? More of whatever I'm not. Jake set down his sandpaper and looked at her directly. Maya, you flew across the country 3 times last month for business meetings, and you still made it to every single Saturday playdate. You're learning to use tools you've never touched before because your kid might enjoy it. You're here trying even when it's hard. That seems pretty maternal to me. Maya felt something crack in her chest. She'd been holding herself together for so long, maintaining the image of someone who had everything under control. But Jake's words found the weak spot in her armor. I'm failing her, Maya whispered. Lily, I've been failing her for so long. No, Jake said firmly. You're learning. There's a difference. From across the workshop, Lily called out. Mom, look. I made a birdhouse. Maya walked over, expecting to see something messy and childish. Instead, she found a surprisingly sturdy little structure with a hole for birds to enter and a small perch. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Lily had made something real with her own hands. That's amazing, sweetheart, Maya said, and she meant it. Lily beamed. Actually beamed. When was the last time Maya had seen that expression on her daughter's face? Can we put it in our garden? Lily asked. Maybe birds will come. Absolutely, Maya said. We'll hang it up as soon as we get home. The afternoon stretched on, all 4 of them working on various projects. Jake helped Dylan with a more complex design. Maya finished her box, which was lopsided but functional. Lily started on a second birdhouse, this time with more confidence. As the sun began to set, casting orange light through the workshop windows, Jake ordered pizza. They sat on the floor eating from the boxes, surrounded by sawdust and the smell of wood and accomplishment. This is nice, Lily said quietly, leaning against Maya's shoulder. Maya froze, afraid to move and break whatever spell had made her daughter voluntarily touch her. Yeah, baby. It is. Dylan was telling some elaborate story about a video game, and Jake was listening with exaggerated interest, asking questions and making Dylan laugh. Maya watched them, watched how natural it all was, and felt both grateful and sad. Grateful that Lily had this experience, this example of what connection looked like. Sad that Maya hadn't been able to give it to her alone. After pizza, while the kids were washing their hands, Jake and Maya cleaned up the workshop together. Thank you, Maya said, for today, for all of this. Stop thanking me, Jake said, but he was smiling. We're friends, right? This is what friends do. Friends. Was that what they were? Maya had colleagues and business associates. She had people she went to networking events with and people she sat on boards with. But friends? Real friends who knew messy parts of her life? She hadn't had those in years. Right, Maya said. Friends. Something flickered across Jake's face, an expression she couldn't quite read. But it was gone before she could analyze it. The next week, Maya did something she'd never done before. She asked Lily what she wanted for dinner instead of just ordering from the usual healthy meal service. Really? Lily looked suspicious. Anything? Within reason, Maya qualified. But yeah, you pick. Can we make pancakes? For dinner? Maya's instinct was to say no. Pancakes weren't dinner food. They weren't balanced or nutritious. They weren't what responsible mothers fed their children. But she thought about Jake's words. Let the tool do the work. Stop trying so hard. Sure, Maya said. Let's make pancakes. They made a mess. Flour ended up everywhere. The first batch burned because Maya didn't know the right temperature. Lily laughed when Maya nearly dropped an egg on the floor. And somewhere in the chaos of that messy kitchen, something shifted. You're fun when you're not worried, Lily observed, pouring chocolate chips into the batter without asking. I'm always we. Everything fell apart on a Tuesday. Maya's company had been in acquisition talks with a larger tech firm for months. It was supposed to be a smooth process, a strategic partnership that would benefit everyone. Instead, a rival company launched a hostile takeover attempt, and suddenly Maya's entire world was on fire. Emergency board meetings, conference calls at midnight, lawyers flying in from 3 different states, the kind of corporate warfare that required every ounce of Maya's attention and then some. She canceled Saturday with Jake and the kids. Then she missed the next Saturday too, and the one after that. Lily's progress evaporated like morning dew. Within a week, she was back to the silent dinners and closed bedroom door. Within 2 weeks, the school called again. Another incident, though this time Lily hadn't locked herself anywhere. She just refused to participate in class, sitting at her desk with her head down no matter what the teacher said. Maya barely noticed. She was living on 4 hours of sleep and 3 cups of coffee. Her assistant started keeping granola bars in her desk because Maya kept forgetting to eat. The dark circles under her eyes became permanent fixtures. "You need to slow down," her mother said over the phone one evening. "You're going to burn out." "I can't slow down," Maya snapped, looking at the stack of contracts on her desk. "The company is under attack. Everything I've built is at risk. I have 200 employees depending on me. And you have a daughter depending on you," her mother reminded her gently. Maya hung up, feeling guilty, but not guilty enough to change anything. This was exactly the kind of crisis she'd spent her whole career preparing for. She couldn't afford to be weak now. Lily would understand. She had to understand, except Lily didn't understand. How could she? She was 8 years old and her mother had disappeared back into work after finally starting to be present. To Lily, it probably felt like abandonment all over again. Maya told herself she'd make it up to her daughter once this crisis passed. She'd take time off. Maybe they'd go on a vacation. She just needed to get through this first. The text from Jake came on a Thursday evening while Maya was reviewing financial statements. "Hey, everything okay? Haven't heard from you in a while. Lily seemed really down at school today, according to Dylan." Maya stared at the message, guilt washing over her. She'd been so consumed with work that she hadn't even texted Jake to explain what was happening. He probably thought she was just ghosting him and the kids. She typed back quickly. "Company crisis. Hostile takeover attempt. It's been crazy. I'm so sorry, don't apologize. But is there anything I can do to help?" Maya almost said no, the automatic response of someone who'd learned not to ask for help. But then she thought about Lily sitting at her desk with her head down, retreating back into that lonely place Maya had been trying so hard to pull her out of. "Actually, yes. Could you pick up Lily from school tomorrow? I have a meeting with lawyers that's going to run late and my backup nanny canceled." "Of course. I'll grab both kids and take them for pizza or something. Don't worry about it." The relief Maya felt was enormous. "Thank you. Really. That's what friends are for," Jake wrote back. Then after a pause, another message came through. "You're doing the best you can, Maya. Cut yourself some slack." Maya didn't know how to respond to that, so she just sent a heart emoji, which felt simultaneously too much and not enough. Then she went back to her financial statements, pushing down the feeling that she was failing at everything that actually mattered. Friday afternoon, Jake picked up both kids from school as promised. Then Saturday came and went. Then Sunday. By Monday, Jake had picked up Lily 4 times that week. He'd helped her with homework, made her dinner, listened to her talk about her day in ways Maya was too exhausted to do. Maya knew this was wrong. She knew she was leaning too heavily on Jake, letting him step into a role that should have been hers. But she was drowning in work, and he was the only life raft she had. The crisis at work intensified. The hostile takeover bid increased. Maya's board was divided on how to respond. She spent entire days in conference rooms fighting for her company's future. Some nights she didn't even make it home, just crashed on the couch in her office. Mrs. Rodriguez, the nanny, started staying overnight more often. Maya would come home at 1 in the morning to find Lily already asleep, homework done, lunch packed for the next day. All the things Maya should have been doing but wasn't. And through it all, Jake kept showing up. He never complained, never made Maya feel guilty, even though she deserved it. He just quietly took care of things like it was the most natural thing in the world, until one night when Maya came home at midnight and found Jake asleep on her couch. She stood in the doorway of her own living room, briefcase in hand, staring at him. He looked uncomfortable, his tall frame awkwardly positioned on her designer couch. There was a children's book on the floor beside him, like he'd been reading to Lily before she went to bed. Maya should have woken him up, sent him home. Instead, she found herself sitting in the chair across from him, just watching him sleep. His face was peaceful, lacking the stress lines she saw in the mirror every morning. He'd rolled up his sleeves at some point, and she could see sawdust still clinging to his forearms. This man, this near stranger who'd stumbled into her life a few months ago, had somehow become essential. He'd helped her understand her daughter. He'd taught her how to be present. And now when she'd fallen back into her old patterns, he'd caught her. Or at least he'd caught Lily. Maya felt tears sliding down her face before she realized she was crying. She was so tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of trying to hold everything together alone. Tired of pretending she was strong enough to do all of this by herself. Maya. Jake's voice was rough with sleep. He sat up, immediately alert when he saw her crying. Hey, what's wrong? Everything, Maya said, and suddenly it all came pouring out. The takeover attempt. The impossible choices she was facing. The fear of losing everything she'd built. The guilt about Lily. The exhaustion that had seeped into her bones. All of it. Jake listened without interrupting. When she finally ran out of words, he got up and sat on the coffee table in front of her chair, his knees almost touching hers. You can't keep doing this, he said gently. You're going to break. I don't have a choice. There's always a choice, Jake said, even when it doesn't feel like it. You don't understand, Maya said, frustration creeping into her voice. This company is everything. It's my legacy. It's how I provide for Lily. It's proof that I'm worth something. Maya, Jake said, his voice firm now. You're worth something because you exist. Not because of what you've built or how much money you make or how many people you employ. You're worth something because you're you. That's easy to say when you're not in my position. You're right, Jake agreed. I'm not. I'm just a carpenter who barely makes enough to keep the lights on some months. But you know what I have? Peace, time with my son. A life that doesn't require me to sacrifice everything else just to prove I'm successful. Maya felt defensive, like he was attacking her choices. So you think I should just give up? Let them take my company? I think you should ask yourself what matters more. The company or the life you're living. Because right now you don't seem to have both. That's not fair. Maybe not, Jake said. But it's true. They sat in tense silence for a moment. Then Jake sighed, running his hands through his hair. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. You're dealing with enough without me judging you. No, Maya said quietly. You're right. I know you're right. I just don't know how to be different. Jake reached out and took her hand. His palm was warm and calloused and solid, real in a way nothing else in her life felt real anymore. You were different, he said, a month ago. You were learning. You were present. Lily was opening up. You were happy, Maya, I saw it. And then everything fell apart. So build it back, Jake said simply. You're good at building things. Build this. Maya looked at their joined hands. What if I can't? What if this is just who I am? Someone who runs away to work whenever things get hard? That's not who you are, Jake said firmly. That's just a habit. Habits can be broken. I'm scared, Maya admitted, of losing the company, of failing Lily again, of letting you down. Jake's expression softened. You couldn't let me down if you tried. And Lily loves you even when you're struggling. She told me that the other day. Said she knows you're trying even when you mess up. Fresh tears spilled down Maya's face. She said that? Yeah, kids are more forgiving than we give them credit for. They just want honesty. Want to know you're trying? Maya nodded, unable to speak. Jake squeezed her hand gently. Why don't you get some sleep? He suggested. Real sleep in your actual bed. I'll crash here on the couch in case Lily needs anything. Tomorrow you can figure out what to do next. But tonight just rest. You don't have to stay, Maya protested weakly. I know, Jake said. But I'm going to anyway. Maya was too tired to argue. She went to her room, barely managing to change into pajamas before collapsing into bed. For the first time in weeks, she slept through the night. When she woke up the next morning, the sun was streaming through her windows. She checked her phone in a panic. It was 9 o'clock. She'd missed 3 meetings, but instead of the usual surge of anxiety, Maya just lay there staring at the ceiling. Jake's words echoed. 6 months later, Maya stood in Jake's workshop watching him teach Lily how to use a lathe. Her daughter's face was scrunched up in concentration, her small hands guided by Jake's larger ones as they shaped wood together. The trust between them was evident in every movement, every patient instruction. That's it, Jake was saying. Feel how the wood wants to curve? Don't force it. Let it tell you what it wants to be. Lily nodded seriously, completely absorbed in the task. Sawdust had settled in her dark hair like snow, and there was a smudge of wood stain on her cheek. She looked happy. More than happy. She looked whole. Maya felt Dylan bump against her side. He'd grown comfortable with her over the months, the initial shyness replaced with easy affection. Your turn next, he said with a grin. Dad says you're getting pretty good at the woodworking stuff. Pretty good is generous, Maya said, laughing. I'm mediocre at best. That's better than terrible, Dylan pointed out with 8-year-old logic. And you were definitely terrible at first. Thanks for that reminder, Maya said, ruffling his hair. The changes in Maya's life hadn't been easy. Stepping back from her CEO role had created waves in the business world. Articles were written. Opinions were shared. Some people called it brave, others called it weakness. Maya had learned to stop caring what strangers thought. Her board had eventually come around, especially when her COO proved more than capable of handling day-to-day operations. The company was actually doing better without Maya's controlling presence in every decision. Turned out micromanaging everything wasn't as essential as she'd thought. The hostile takeover had failed. The rival company had moved on to other targets. Maya's company survived, stronger for having weathered the storm, and Maya had survived too, though she'd emerged different, softer in some ways, stronger in others. The transition hadn't been smooth. There were days when Maya's old instincts kicked in, when she wanted to dive back into work and lose herself in problems she knew how to solve. But Jake had a way of pulling her back, reminding her what mattered, like now, watching her daughter create something beautiful with her hands, completely present in the moment. This was what mattered. This was what success actually looked like. Mom, come look, Lily called out, holding up the wooden bowl she'd been working on. It was slightly uneven, the grain not perfectly smooth, but it was hers, made with her own effort and patience. Maya walked over, running her fingers over the wood. It's beautiful, sweetheart. It's for you, Lily said shyly. For your desk at work, so you can keep paper clips and stuff in it. Maya felt tears threatening. 6 months ago, Lily barely spoke to her. Now she was making gifts, thinking about Maya's life, wanting to be part of it. I love it. I'll use it every single day. Jake met Maya's eyes over Lily's head, his expression warm. They'd been officially together for 4 months now, though it felt like longer. There had been no dramatic declaration, no big romantic gesture, just a gradual blending of their lives until one day Maya realized she couldn't remember what her life had been like without him. He stayed over most nights now, in Maya's pristine apartment that was slowly becoming more lived in. His tools had found a home in her spare closet, his coffee mugs mixed with hers in the kitchen cabinet. His presence had seeped into every corner of her space, making it feel less like a showroom and more like a home. They hadn't moved in together officially. Both of them wanted to take things slow, to make sure the kids were comfortable with every step. But it was heading that direction. Everyone could feel it. Maya's mother had been surprised by the relationship at first. A carpenter, she'd said when Maya first told her, in that tone that suggested Maya was dating beneath her station. But then she'd met Jake, watched him interact with Lily, seen the way Maya laughed around him. Her opinion had changed quickly. He's good for you, her mother had admitted a month ago. You're different with him, more like the person you were before life got so hard. Maya hadn't known how to explain that Jake hadn't made her into someone different. He just helped her find the parts of herself she'd buried under ambition and fear and the need to prove something. Now, as the afternoon light slanted through the workshop windows, Jake called everyone over to his main workbench. I have something to show you all, he announced. He pulled a tarp off something in the corner, revealing a large wooden structure. A treehouse, Dylan shouted, immediately recognizing what it was. You finished it! We finished it, Jake corrected. This is a team project. I had help designing it. He looked at Lily, who was beaming with pride. I drew the plans, Lily explained to Maya. Jake taught me how to measure and stuff. We've been working on it for weeks as a surprise. Maya stared at the treehouse frame, seeing the careful construction, the attention to detail, the love built into every joint and beam. This is incredible. It's for your backyard, Jake said. If that's okay. We found that big oak tree in the corner, and Dylan and Lily thought it would be perfect. We can install it next weekend. Maya looked at her daughter, at Dylan, at Jake, at these 3 people who had somehow become her family without her realizing it was happening. More than okay. It's perfect. Later that evening, after pizza and cleanup, after Dylan and Lily had settled in to watch a movie, Maya and Jake stood on her apartment balcony looking at the city lights. Thank you, Maya said, leaning against the railing. For what? For the treehouse. For today. For the last 6 months. For everything. Jake wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. You don't have to keep thanking me. I know. But I want to. Maya turned in his arms to face him. I was drowning before you came along. I didn't even realize how badly. You weren't drowning, Jake said. You were just treading water really aggressively. Maya laughed. That's a generous interpretation. You're being too hard on yourself again. It's a habit I'm working on breaking. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Jake said, I've been thinking about something. That sounds dangerous, Maya teased. Seriously, though, Dylan and Lily have been asking questions about us. About the future. Maya's heart beat a little faster. What kind of questions? Kid questions. Like whether we're going to live together, whether they'll be brother and sister, whether we're going to get married. Oh, Maya said. Those questions. Yeah, and I realized I don't know how to answer them because I don't know what you want. Where you see this going? Maya took a deep breath. 6 months ago, this conversation would have terrified her. The vulnerability of it. The risk of admitting she wanted something and potentially losing it. But Jake had taught her that vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was strength. I want this to be permanent, Maya said. I want to blend our families. I want Saturday mornings and messy dinners and arguments about whose turn it is to do the dishes. I want the boring, normal, everyday stuff that I used to think was beneath me. And marriage? Jake asked carefully. Is that something you'd want again? Eventually, Maya said. Not right now. I want to get it right this time. I want to make sure Lily and Dylan are ready. I want us to be ready. But yeah, eventually I'd want that. With you. Jake's smile was slow and genuine. Good. Because I bought a ring 2 weeks ago and have been terrified to bring it up. Maya's eyes widened. You what? Don't panic, Jake said quickly. I'm not proposing right now. I just saw it in a store window and it made me think of you. Simple, elegant, but strong. I bought it on impulse, which is very unlike me. It's been sitting in my sock drawer ever since, and I've been trying to figure out when the right time would be. You're terrible at keeping secrets, Maya said. But she was smiling. I know. Dylan almost found it last week, and I had to convince him it was a gift for his grandmother. You don't have a grandmother. He didn't think that part through, Jake admitted. Maya kissed him, soft and slow. When they pulled apart, she said, For the record, I wouldn't say no. When you do eventually ask, just so you know. Noted, Jake said, his eyes crinkling with happiness. Inside the apartment, they could hear Lily and Dylan arguing good-naturedly about which movie to watch next. The sounds of normal family life. The sounds Maya had spent so long avoiding because they reminded her of her failures. Now those sounds felt like home. The treehouse installation the following weekend turned into an event. Maya invited her mother. Jake invited his parents, who drove up from their retirement community 3 hours away. Even Mrs. Rodriguez came by, touched to be included in the family celebration. Jake's father turned out to be a retired contractor, and he jumped right into helping with the installation. Maya's mother surprisingly got along great with Jake's mother. They sat in lawn chairs drinking iced tea and watching the construction like it was entertainment. Your young man is very capable, Maya's mother commented, and good with the children. He is, Maya agreed. You look happy, her mother said. Really happy, not the fake happy you used to do at business events. I am happy, Maya said, realizing it was completely true. I didn't think I could be this happy. By evening, the treehouse was installed. It was perfect, nestled in the big oak tree with a rope ladder and a small deck. Lily and Dylan immediately climbed up, claiming different corners as their territories. We should paint it, Lily announced from above. With flowers and stars and stuff? I want to paint a dragon, Dylan co.